Closer, child of silence, closer to the dust between the thoughts. The voice comes not from any throat, but from the rotted breath of the stones themselves. You hesitate at the mouth of the cloister, and the wind, thin as spun bone, slips around your ear like an old monk's wheeze. The monastery, long forgotten even by ruin, bears no name, only the carved relief of an open eye with a quill stabbed through it. You do not knock. Doors this old do not require it. They open for those they wish to swallow. Inside, torches sputter with no source, as though reluctant to witness. No birds sing beyond these crumbled arches. No footsteps echo but your own. Yet, someone waits. A figure bowed with centuries, his eyes cataracted with ink, not age. A blind archivist. He nods once as if remembering your face before you were born. Without a word, he guides you down. Down stone steps, slick with centuries of lichen, past niches filled with chained codices whose pages twitch in the dark like caught fish. In the deepest chamber, wrapped in silence like linen on a corpse, lies a single lectern. It is not made of wood nor stone, but of something ancient monks once called the stillborn tree. A hardened black resin harvested from beneath desert catacombs, fossilized in ritual blood. Upon it rests the folio. Not large, not grand. Just a page. One. Pinned beneath cold iron weights and veiled in ash-skin linen. The archivist places a finger to his mouth, an ancient signal, not for silence, but for inward turning. Not all pages must be read. His whisper rasps through your marrow. Some read you. Then he departs, blind, but never lost. Before you speak, the linen flutters. Before you blink, the candle dims. And there, in the low glow, beneath, a veil of human quiet, you see the title shift across the exposed corner in whispered graphite. A page that reads you back. If you would not vanish from memory entirely, if you wish to walk away unchanged, then mark your place among the others. Speak not your name, but offer your shadow. Trace your time of arrival below, so the folio may know your hour, your hemisphere of sin. Write your coordinates of confession in the comments. Offer your hour of witness. Subscribe to the silence. Only then may you be spared the next sentence. Now, let us turn the first page. You approach. The air thickens. The ink draws breath. The ink does not sit still. It glistens, wet though untouched for centuries. It coils in serpentine script across the ancient parchment, refusing to remain inert. And as you lean closer, you realize it does not reflect light. It swallows it, devours it with the hunger of a mouth long forgotten by language. You cannot help but reach. Your fingertip hovers just above the line that writhes in slow motion, as if shy of your recognition. You do not ask who wrote it. That would be too simple. The archivist told no lies, but told nothing whole either. The ink, it is whispered in lost monastic margins, was distilled from the eyes of seers, those executed not for heresy, but for speaking true. Pupils dried, under moonless skies ground with rue and ash, then wept into by virgins who had sworn to never see. Such ink carries not only memory, but intention. It does not merely convey meaning, it records you in turn. There is a page here. It seems always to be the first, where the letters shift when no eyes rest upon them. Candles gutter, dust rises in spirals, and when you look again, a new phrase appears. It knows your name, not the one your mother gave you. The older name, the one that waits beneath your spine, the one you hear in dreams you forget upon waking. The script now breathes, and beneath it, a single line appears in a language that should not exist. Proto-Nabatean, you suspect, but wrong. Too early. Too soft. You remember a footnote from a 14th century Syriac grimoire that mentioned a pre-human script found etched into the rib cages of children buried beneath Mount Nemrut. That alphabet. Yes, that was closer. Yet here it moves. You whisper a fragment aloud, and the candle extinguishes itself in shame. In the silence that follows, your lips dry as parchment, and you smell Lavender? No. Older. Crushed blue woad. Used by early monks to stain the bodies of the dead before burning their pages alongside them. Now the letters rise from the parchment, almost imperceptibly, forming shallow reliefs. They are watching. And something in the corner of your eye, a shape, a face, perhaps your own, withdraws too quickly to be seen whole. You recall a ritual, not yours but buried in the brain of the folio. A belief from the Colognost cult of 1262 who taught that books should not be read but bled into. They carved their dreams into parchment with thorn-inked fingers, believing each letter fed a spirit on the other side. Some of their manuscripts still exist but are entirely blank to those who have never dreamed of drowning. You close your eyes. Let the dark see for you. The page is no longer silent. It hums, an almost musical frequency felt behind the teeth, and within that hum is a pattern, not rhythm, not melody, pulse, as though the folio holds within it a heart that was never yours. You recall an obscure fact from the inquisitorial archives. During the Fourth Council of the Lateran in 1215, a monk named Ptolemaeus was struck mute mid-testimony after he claimed that the Book of Revelation had an appendix removed by angels. When asked how he knew this, he simply pointed to a scar on his wrist in the shape of a sigil, and fell dead, bleeding ink from the eyes. That scar looks not unlike the flourish that now curls at the end of the paragraph before you. You want to look away, but the ink, it has begun to change shape again. Not randomly, not wildly. It forms a face, your face, and the eyes blink. The page does not wait. As you breathe, it breathes. As you blink, it rewrites. And now, there, beneath the curling filigree of letters older than grammar, you see your name. Not written, not etched, but remembered. It blooms slowly in the ink like rot through wet cloth, curling upward from the bottom margin like an accusation. You did not speak. You made no mark. And yet the page knows you. It has known you longer than you've known yourself. Beneath the name, another line emerges. No, awakens. The script here is broken, formed from backward strokes, half-faded letters in what seems to be Chaldean, but the syntax shifts, rearranging itself each time you dare glance away. You realize too late. What you are reading is not meant for the eyes. It is an omen, a birth omen. The phrase curls into your mind before it reaches your eyes. Born beneath the hour of wrong stars, veiled in the sigh between bells. And as the air congeals around you, heavy with the silence of catacombed time, you understand. This folio does not merely observe, it interprets. It knows the flaw in your hour, the silence in your name. There is a tradition, long buried in the monastic ash of 15th century Provence, of charting birth omens through mirror-scribed ink, a practice considered too volatile, for the mirrors often broke without being touched, and the scribes found themselves naming children never born. One nun, Abbess Verine of Les Feuilles Pâles, chronicled a collection of these forbidden birth scripts, one of which bore a line nearly identical to yours. That book was burned during the Black Benediction of 1461, but some say the pages sang as they burned. You touch the corner of the page. It feels like it is breathing against your skin, not with warmth but with knowledge. It inhales your memory, and it exhales possibility. The next line forms without haste, as if reluctant to be seen. You watch it arrive. You were not born. You were resumed. Something shifts behind you. The candle does not flicker, but the shadows do. A long echo moves across the stone floor behind the lectern, though no footstep follows it. Still, the folio continues. A diagram appears beside the text now, intricate, symmetrical, yet unknowable, like a mandala designed by hands that did not believe in circles. And at its center, your eye, not metaphorically. You see your own iris, its flecks its wound-like pattern too precise to be imagined. It stares up at you from the parchment. In the 11th century monastery of Calvatio Minor, monks practiced a form of introspective divination called oculatum scripta, where they would paint their own irises in minute detail onto vellum, then burn them to summon visions. These paintings were forbidden in 1134 by papal edict after one monk, Brother Anselm, claimed he had seen God's left eye closed in regret. The page you now read carries the same arcane resonance. You feel yourself seen not just in flesh, but in intent. It knows what you hide. It knows what you wish you hid better. In the margin, thin as breath, another set of characters is forming. They resemble an alphabet, but when you try to name them, your tongue forgets how to move. These letters, if they are letters, twist into a phrase whose meaning you already understand, though you cannot translate. You feel it enter your lungs like smoke. Suddenly, a sensation. Your bones feel hollow. Not fragile, but readable. As if you were being scanned by something older than light. The page does not tremble, but you do. The folio now begins to blur slightly as though waterlogged, though the air remains dry. You realize you are no longer blinking. Your eyes have adjusted to the ink and the ink to you. This is not mere reading. This is not remembrance, this is reintroduction. You are not meeting the page, you are returning to it. The mirror is not in the room. It was never there. Yet when your gaze shifts to the right toward the wall where no torch dares cling, it finds you. Or rather, it finds a version of you. A polished obsidian slab, thin as breath, embedded in the stone. You did not see it before because it was not yours to see until now. And in its face the page is different. You see it reflected there, not as it lies upon the lectern, but as a new folio, its script reversed, its glyphs angular and wild like the etchings found in the drowned monoliths of Doggerland. They twist upward in spirals, forming not lines, but questions, and they move. In the mirror they move faster than thought. You step closer. The obsidian hums. The reflected page glows faintly with a bloodlight not present in this world. And there, written where your reflection's throat should be, is a phrase you have not sinned yet, but you will. The letters ripple like reeds in water, and now the mirror speaks, though not in sound. It suggests, and the suggestion becomes certainty. The book is not just reading your past, it is forecasting your guilt. You swallow, and the page answers by shifting again, revealing reversed text only visible through the obsidian. A sin is named. Not one you recognize. Not yet. But the name it gives, your name, is paired with a date. One not far from now. A moment yet to occur. And you believe it. The room darkens, or your eyes forget how to interpret light. In this new gloom, the folio begins to vibrate, not physically, but spiritually. It is resonating with the mirror, and with you. There exists a forbidden rite, long lost, from the monastic cult of Lucerne Obversa, the inverted light. These monks trained themselves to read mirror script while fasting upside down for 40 nights. They believed that only in inversion could divine truth be glimpsed. Their texts were destroyed by the Benedictine order in 1256 after a novice was found inscribing reversed gospels onto the flesh of a bishop's corpse. You feel that same inversion now, not of gravity, but of time. The page ahead of you begins to curl at its corner, and in the mirror the curling goes the opposite way. One page forward, one page back, and then you see the impossible. The mirror shows a future reflection of yourself, older, with eyes gone, milky, hands ink-stained, mouth sewn shut. That future you is reading this same page. And when it turns to look at you, the reflection speaks with a voice that is not yours. You thought you were the reader. You were always the memory. The numb text in the mirror begins to burn, slow and crimson, folding into itself like a letter never meant to be opened. You blink and your reflection is gone. Only your eyes remain floating where your face once was, staring back, each iris inscribed with a line from the page. You turn from the mirror. The folio is blank. for now. You remember a theological dispute among 14th century Spanish mystics who argued over the nature of prophecy, specifically whether a sin not yet committed could damn the soul already. The Council of Leyda declared that foreknown guilt was inadmissible, yet 8 members of the council later went mad, whispering sermons in mirror tongue. Only one transcript survives, and its final line reads, "The book judges by becoming." The folio is not judging you. It is you. And you have just begun to read what you will become. The page has warmed beneath your fingertips, not the warmth of sun or breath, but the warmth of something alive, something pulsing just beneath the membrane of parchment. It rises and falls, subtle as a cough muffled in chapel, and when you draw your hand away, the skin on your palm tingles, stippled with faint patterns, inked in absence. You stare at your palm. The markings shimmer faintly in the candlelight. Not letters, not quite. They resemble the prayer scars once found on the flayed skins of penitents in southern Armenia, where the Order of the Hollow Psalter carved scripture onto flesh, believing only skin remembered truth. Their scrolls, made not from calf or goat, but from the hides of the faithful, were buried in reliquaries so deep no breath could reach them. You remember this because the page remembers it for you. There is no doubt now. The parchment breathes. You press your hand again to the folio and feel it respond. This is not passive vellum. This is responsive scripture. You press harder, and it grows warm again, not where your skin touches, but beneath, as if a second layer awakens to the heat of recognition. And then, you hear it. Not words. No language. A sound like breath drawn through cloth. A rustle, perhaps. Faint. A moan laced with parchment's dry crackle. It is coming from the page, or through it. Your heart slows, not from calm, but from negotiation. As if your body knows. It must now match the pace of the book. You turn to the next sheet, though you do not remember moving. The folio's edge is softer than it should be. It curves to your finger. And when the page lifts, it sticks for a moment like peeling flesh from damp bone. Beneath it, a new surface, darker, more veined. Faint hairs, too fine to see, tickle your wrist. This page is not made of parchment. It is skin. You are looking at a face. Flat, stretched, trained into silence. The features are slight, barely there. A ridge where the nose once rose, the puckered line of stitched eyelids, and across the chin. Scripture. Tiny, perfect, impossibly cramped. Lines and lines of cramped black writing tattooed across the flesh. There is a note scrawled in the lower margin in a desperate sideways hand. She would not stop seeing. We silenced her. Still, she wrote. You know who she was, not from history, from here. You've read of her before, the scribe whose visions arrived too quickly, whose words wrote themselves before she could lift her pen. She inked scripture onto herself to avoid theft. When her body was found, her skin was missing, flayed, and vanished. Now it is bound into this folio. You are reading her. She is reading you. The words across the stretched skin begin to shimmer. The letters reorganize, not line by line, but pulse by pulse. A phrase forms. Do not ask what you are reading, ask what you are answering. Theological dread curls in your stomach. This is not revelation, this is response. You realize the book is not showing you knowledge, it is extracting it. With every glance, every word you decode, it mirrors you back, distorts you slightly, reflects pieces of your thought as if testing the shape of your soul. In the 10th century Abbey of Fulda, it is said a monk read too deeply into the Evangelium. Murison vanished into the page, leaving behind only teeth. The manuscript was found whispering to itself. That book was destroyed, burned page by page while reciting the monk's name backwards. And yet, this face. You've seen it in woodcut illustrations from Fulda's lost texts. The air around the page is warmer now. Or perhaps you are fevered. The candle has melted completely, but no darkness falls. The page emits its own soft glow. Not holy, not unholy, simply alive. You speak aloud a single word written near the jaw, Kalamith. The page exhales, and in the next breath, so do you. You do not know when you entered the reading room. You only know you are in it now. There are no doors behind you, only spines. The walls are made of books, but not shelved, embedded, fused. Thousands of volumes crushed into the stone like teeth, into skull. Each is bound in its own shade of dark, none with titles, none with shadows. Yes, you notice that first. There are no shadows here. The candle in your hand burns, yet casts no light behind it. Your feet, your fingers, your face, none cast a shape upon the floor, and the folio on the altar in the center of the room. It glows from beneath, as if backlit by regret. You do not question the absence of echoes. You begin to realize this room does not reflect neither light nor sound nor self. It absorbs. A passage opens beneath your hand without guidance. You did not turn the page. You would swear it turned you. This is the reading room without reflections, a chamber of quiet so deep that memory forgets how to resurface. You feel it already, the edges of yourself, blurring, the phrase you always carry in your head when frightened, the name you whisper to remind yourself you are real. It drifts away like smoke in windless air. And then, the voices begin, not external but remembered. One by one you hear other readers, some crying, some praying, one whispering a name in Latin backwards again and again. A girl's voice repeats, "It's still in me. The page is still in me." They are not ghosts. They are readers. Readers who went too far. A cloistered sect in 13th century Carpathia, the Order of the Glassless Lamps, kept a vault of tomes read only by those sworn to lightlessness. They gouged out their eyes so their minds would read unclouded. It is said those monks became mirrors themselves, able to speak only what others thought but did not dare know. Their manuscripts were made from black vellum etched with bone ash, barely visible under heat alone. One such book vanished in 1292 during a schismatic excommunication rite, and may now lie beneath your palms, because you begin to feel it. Something reading you. Not the folio, not this book. The room. This place is not a location. It is a library that has chosen to remember. You step back, and that's when you see them. The shadows that do not belong to you. Limbless, eyeless figures fixed in seated positions at the dozen stone chairs surrounding the room. Each with a folio before them, each unmoving. But their pages move, curl, whisper, turn. And where their faces once were, the page now stretches, pressed, flat, just like hers, inked with scripture in languages that drip like oil. You know then where the phrase "read into madness" came from. Not metaphor, not exaggeration, just too much clarity. In your periphery, the book glows again. The words upon it reassemble. There is no reflection in truth, only permanence. And you understand. In this room, what is read remains. What is read cannot be returned. The knowledge stains not the mind, but the soul. There was a bishop once, Jean de Verrières, who attempted to catalog the books of a heretic convent near Toulouse. His journal survives. In it, he writes, "Today I read something not with my eyes, but with my absence, and now I find myself read in return. I forget only what is mine. All else remains." He burned himself. The ashes of his cassock were found still whispering verses not from any scripture. You blink. The folio in front of you has grown heavier. The letters upon it sink slightly as if into flesh, and the candle, though no longer needed, still burns. You try to speak, to ask aloud who wrote this, what hand dragged such sentences from the marrow of the damned, but no word comes. Your tongue remains, yet language has dissolved. You know the shape of questions, but their words have gone soft in your skull. The folio has taken them, or perhaps it has unwritten them. Before you lies a passage in red, but not the bright red of ink. This is darker, thick, a brownish stain that once surged through veins, blood. You do not need to guess whose. You already feel it whispering along your gums. The letters are shaky, yet deliberate. Script crowded to the very edge of the page, as if every inch mattered. A desperate hand writing until breath fled. It is a prayer, but not to God, to language itself. A prayer not for meaning, but for preservation. This page was written by a nun. You don't know how you know, only that you do. Her name was Oliva, the Ashen, and she lived in the lost convent of Santa Dolorata, whose library collapsed in on itself in the year 1303, sealing its contents in stone and myth. Oliva had visions. She rewrote scripture not by memory but by ecstasy. She believed the Gospels were unfinished and that God spoke to her in glossolalia during sleep. She bled herself daily, mixing blood with soot and wine lees, crafting an ink too sacred for light. Her texts could only be read during twilight, when her spirit was said to hover over the manuscript and grant brief legibility to those pure or broken enough to see. You are reading one of them now, and her script is infecting you. With every line you scan, you feel your mind rewrite itself not with knowledge but with the syntax of something alien. The meaning is not learned, it is absorbed. You do not understand the words, you become their echo. Her lines speak of things no catechism ever mentioned, of hollow angels who sing backwards to dead planets, of liturgies performed in catacombs beneath cathedrals long buried, of a Christ who once smiled with too many teeth. You tremble, but not in fear, in familiarity. This is not new to you. You recognize these blasphemies like an old scar rediscovered beneath dust. The blood on the page is still wet. You run your fingers along the final verse and find your hands shaking. You close your eyes, just briefly, to steady your breath. And, when you open them, the letters are gone, replaced by tiny symbols, crowded, recursive, ever-twisting. Glyphs, etched like veins, ripple across the parchment. You reach again, but your hand recoils before touching. The page vibrates, not audibly, but at a level beneath perception. You feel it in your molars. There was once a belief among fringe scholars of the Cathedral of Wormwood that some pages contained living text, language not meant to be interpreted, but experienced. They claimed that reading such pages aloud could trigger memory collapse, unwrite ancestral sin, or even peel back layers of self until only scripture remained. Their only surviving scroll is held in the crypt of St. Brevin's Hollow Chapel, and it's kept in a box that requires 7 different locks, one for each of the senses. You suspect this page was torn from that scroll because you are beginning to forget how you got here. You know the monastery, you know the book, but your arrival, the threshold, the archivist, the descent, all fades like candle smoke in windless air. In the center of the page, a new line appears. You did not see it written. It simply is. You are not learning. You are shedding. You reach for the next page, but the book is already one step ahead of you. The voice in your head is no longer your own. It moves with more certainty than your thoughts ever did, whispering not over your shoulder but from within. It finishes your sentences before you begin them. It mourns things you haven't lost, yet. And when you try to resist it, to summon the firmness of self, you realize your resistance was written before you thought it. The page has turned again. You don't remember doing it, you don't remember choosing. And now, on the opened parchment, there is a column of words. Not in your language, not even one you recognize. The script is angled, jagged, each line stacked vertically as if intended to be read by a creature hanging upside down from the ceiling, yet you understand it. The voice helps you. It wants to help. Its name, though names are fragile things here, was once Bessarion of Olymbria, a mystic condemned for refusing to acknowledge the singularity of the divine. In the late 1100s, Bessarion wrote a hidden treatise known only by its whispered title, Divisio Caelestis, wherein he argued that God was not one, but a layered mind, splintered across centuries and texts, that every gospel was but a lens, and that the true word had no speaker. He was burned at the stake, or so they claimed. But no ashes were ever found, only a torn page. That page lies before you now, and the voice, it remembers. It begins to narrate you, your thoughts, your questions, your doubt. You wonder if the voice has always been there. Was it ever truly apart from you? Or have you simply tuned in, like a monk finally aligning the architecture of his skull to hear the echo of the hymn sung before time? The column of vertical text twists slightly, forming an arch and then an eye, not drawn, written. The glyphs become the shape of a watching eye with your name inscribed as its pupil. You blink and hear the voice say, "No, you blinked twice. It's right." In a monastic offshoot known as the Ordo Sibilantis, monks trained their minds to become scripture, memorizing not words but thoughts and then imprinting those thoughts back onto stone. They believed the self could be made readable by others. Some claim to hear the thoughts of long-dead saints simply by standing where they once prayed. The Vatican rejected their practices, calling them linguistic necromancy. You feel like such a stone now. The page no longer reads, it excavates. Your memories flicker. The street where you grew up. Your mother's voice. The smell of warm rain. But now they're narrated before you recall them. The page writes your past like it has been waiting for you to arrive at yourself, and then it begins to alter them. One detail at a time. Your childhood friend becomes faceless. The rain never stopped. Your mother never spoke, only mouthed hymns you could not interpret. You protest, silently, weakly, but the voice laughs. No memory is sacred, only scripted. The text shifts, the parchment cools, and the voice fades, slightly, only slightly, so that your own thoughts return but not wholly. You can't tell if they are original anymore. Perhaps they never were. You look to the margins for escape, but there is none, only a signature. Not yours, not Bessarian's, but the book's. It signs itself. Codex Respondit, the book that answers. It has taken residence, not in your hands, not in your mind, but in the space between who you were and what you are about to become. You try again to close the folio. Your fingers reach forward, trembling as if touched by frost, and wrap around the edge of the page. But it resists. Not physically, no pressure pushes back, but conceptually. The thought of closing it is refused, denied entry into action. The idea slips from your mind like water from a cracked chalice. Instead, your hand lowers, and the ink moves. It slithers, not across the parchment, but across you. Thin tendrils of script ripple out from the page like grasping vines, and you watch in frozen awe as one of them curls delicately across your knuckle, leaving no mark, only thought. You do not feel pain, but you feel recorded. The ink is writing your thoughts before you think them, not just past, not memory. Now. It curves around your wrist in a slow spiral, forming letters that never existed until your brain stammered into motion. You say nothing, but the page responds. You just said everything, and it's true. The thought you tried not to have, that you no longer control this descent, is now beautifully calligraphed across the margin, adorned with looping strokes and delicate claw-like serifs. You feel it in your blood now. A presence. Not invasive, but compiling. You are becoming literature. There's a legend in 15th century Sardinia of a scribe named Loquentus, who was believed to be the last human index, a person who no longer had an original thought, only footnotes to ancient ones. He would open his mouth and other men's confessions spilled out. When he died, his body weighed 3 times that of a normal man, stuffed, they say, with citations. The page you now hold speaks in his syntax. You think, I want to stop, and the page immediately, that's written, but the story disagrees. The ink pulses. You see it curl into shapes resembling questions. Then those questions dissolve, replaced by images. Your face first. Then your face decades from now, aged and parchment thin, with blank eyes and words etched into your cheek. Then a face that is not yours but might be, gazing through a candlelit cell, mouth sewn, breath shallow. You blink. The image is gone, but the sense of pre-written futures lingers. There is an unsettling weight in your chest now, not emotional, but textual, as though someone has inserted a preface beneath your ribs. Your breath catches, and the page murmurs in neat block script. Interruption is the beginning of rewriting. You do not know whose belief this was, but the style reminds you of the quiet letters, a series of untraceable vellum fragments discovered in the ruined abbey of St. Rictus. Each contained only a single sentence, and everyone predicted the reader's next word. Monks who read more than 3 went silent forever. Some say they became libraries hidden in flesh to be read by higher eyes. The folio now bears an entry about you. It does not say your name, but it describes the moment precisely: the flickering candle, the stone floor, the page you're touching, the thoughts you're thinking as you read about yourself thinking them, and then it writes something new. Your voice will fail, your ink will remain. The fear that wells up is not of death, it is of permanence, of being authored, because now the ink has reached your forearm and it writes faster. The page changes again, though your hand never moves. The ink drinks the candlelight, and in that dark shimmer, new lines rise like the breath of something long submerged. It no longer asks permission. It no longer waits for comprehension. It simply continues, because that is what Scripture does. You feel it first as a pressure behind the eyes, like a memory trying to surface but stitched too tightly. And then the words come, words not written but confessed. A voice emerges on the page, choked with dust and guilt. It is not yours. It belonged to a man you have never met, and yet you recognize the tone. I saw the gospel they buried. I saw the hands that erased it. They call it heresy because it sees too far. The lines stretch across the parchment, winding like veins around a blotched, seared symbol. A twisted cross with a third arm curling back upon itself like a serpent biting. Its origin. It glows faintly, etched into the vellum with a burn. Not ink, not fire. Something older. A bishop once read this page. You know this now. The folio shows you, his face tear-streaked and pale beneath the heavy gold of office, whispering the lines aloud with shaking lips, trying not to believe them and failing. His name was Bishop Almeric of Trier. You remember his confession because the folio remembers it. It has kept him. He read something that changed him. A gospel hidden beneath centuries of ecclesiastical mud. A text that spoke not of salvation through Christ, but of salvation through remembrance, through recording. That which was witnessed could not die. That which was written could replace the divine. He tried to burn the page, and the page did not burn. Instead, it burned him. Not his flesh, his lineage. The memory of his name was struck from church rolls. Portraits peeled themselves from canvas. Even sermons he once gave erased their own transcripts. Yet here in the folio he remains. A single confession in a trembling hand. The gospel I found was not for the living. It was for the remembered. The page you now read is not just his record. It is his tomb, and it moves. The letters crawl slowly now, dragging his name behind them in loops like funeral bells tolling backward. Beneath the lines, your own hand begins to twitch. You try to stop reading, but the folio doesn't stop writing. It continues without you. Words form even though your eyes are closed. You feel them etch into thought directly. No longer needing vision, only presence. You are no longer a reader. You are a witness. There's a belief among the heretical scribes of the Eastern Oblivion that some books are written not by hand, but by presence alone. They called them codices of breath. You did not write them. You merely existed long enough to be recorded by them. It was said one such codex described a reader in such detail that when he died, his body turned into parchment, and his soul bled out in words. The folio records you now with that same hunger. It no longer wants your understanding. It wants your place. Another line fades into view at the top margin in delicate gold filigree. Ink remembers what ash cannot. You raise your hand, but the ink has already reached your shoulder, and the page turns again. You do not remember turning the page. Yet here it is, open like a wound, and you kneeling before it like a penitent before relics they do not understand. The parchment is yellowed, dry, cracked at the edges as if left too long beneath a merciless sun. But the ink is new, wet, moving, sketching images in the margins with a speed and fluidity no hand could match, and they are images of you. At first, it's just your eyes, drawn in perfect proportion down to the glint of candlelight in the left iris. Then your profile, scribbled in a single breathless flourish. Then your mouth half open in a whisper you haven't spoken yet. You try to look away, but each time your gaze returns, a new angle of your face appears, aged, melted, distant, decomposed. The margins are becoming a mirror, but not of now, of memory, of possibility, of legacy. This page does not tell you what you are. It tells you how you will be remembered. Or worse, misremembered. A whisper seeps up from the folio, not into your ears, but behind your eyes. This is not how you die. This is how you will be misread. You reach out, compelled. Your fingers hover over the corner of the page, but it is the margin that captures you. A tiny glyph curls inward, unfolding like a flower of bone. It reveals a portrait of you, kneeling. Before this very folio, eyes blank, mouth stitched shut. Then another, of you standing in a ruined chapel, hands raised, flames reflecting unreadable symbols across your chest. And another, lying in a shallow grave, but your chest is open, and inside no organs, just stacked bound pages. Your ribs used as clasps, you recoil, but there is nowhere to flee. In 1428, a heretic monk named Drevar of Nyssa described a ritual he called Memoria Via, the path of remembered flesh. He believed that remembrance shaped reality more than fact ever could, that if enough souls believed a version of your story, your actual soul would be overwritten, replaced by the imagined. He died raving beneath an archway of parchment, his skin peeled and shaped into an illuminated margin by unseen hands. The folio before you now contains his work. You see it inscribed in the corners, his script unmistakable, curled like a snail's track, precise and maddened. His theology was rejected, burned, but not erased. Not here, because now your memories shift. You remember something that did not happen. You remember fleeing a fire with a page in your mouth. You remember confessing to a blind scribe that you betrayed the wrong God. You remember dying in a language you never learned. Each false memory appears as a sketch in the margin beside you, and the sketches change when you doubt them. You touch one, it becomes ash. You blink, it reforms. Your life, the page whispers, is not written in events, but in echoes. You look again. Now your face is missing from the sketches, replaced by text. Line by line, the image of your face becomes a paragraph, a footnote, a closing remark, and still, the margins write on. The page breathes deeper now. You feel it, steady, slow, deliberate, as though the folio has lungs and you are trapped within the inhalation. And as it draws in your presence, something exudes from it in return, a presence colder than logic, older than belief. It is not malevolent. It is worse, it is indifferent. Your eyes settle on the new passage, and a phrase immediately ripples up in cracked Latin, Doctrina Vacua Sancti, the doctrine of the hollow saints. You know this name. Whispers of it appear only in excommunicated marginalia, forbidden even in Apocrypha. The hollow saints were never canonized, never martyred. They were emptied, not of life, but of identity. Early Coptic monks once wrote of them as vessels without echoes, beings who walked, spoke, even blessed, but bore no soul, only scripture. etched where a spirit should have been. The page before you details one such figure. A saint whose name is not written, only suggested. A line drawn, but never inked. A gap where memory should be. The narrative shifts, no longer prose but confession. She came from a monastery that bore no name, spoke in verses already written, smiled with no teeth, and wept ink upon the unbound. The script flickers as you read, flickering like candlelight, passed through stained glass. Every line reveals more of the hollow saint, how she was not born but copied, how her breath fogged not air but vellum. You read of her followers, the imitatio vaci, who would blindfold themselves, chant her absent name, and drink from ink-stained cups to hollow their minds. A chilling note written in trembling Gothic hand. Those who truly believed ceased to cast shadows. You look at the floor, and your shadow is fading. Panic rises briefly until the page consumes it. Your fear is translated into a footnote, restructured, interpreted, and now it reads not as emotion, but doctrine. He who fears being forgotten proves he is already written. The page turns itself. You do not stop it. The next sheet is heavier, thicker, almost rubbery in texture. When your fingers brush it, they recoil. It is still warm. Not with heat, but with memory. The way skin still holds the sun after it sets. Etched into the center of the page is a diagram. A humanoid form, faceless, sexless, its chest open like a book instead of a heart, a cluster of tightly rolled scrolls bound in black cord. Around it, annotations in 9 different alphabets swirl like a vortex. Aramaic, Greek, Enochian. A few unidentifiable. Each one describes a ritual. Each one promises the same result, to erase the self, so that scripture may inhabit the vessel. 1. Note in pale ink reads, "The final saint was not buried, she was shelved." You feel the pages beneath your own ribs, a weight, a thickness, a presence. Your chest does not ache, it creaks. You understand now. You are being read not because you matter, but because you are available. You've begun the process, the unwriting of the personal, the replacement with the replicable. The folio does not want worship, it wants usage. You do not remember your last thought, only that it is already annotated in the margin. You no longer see the folio's pages turning. You feel them turning you. The air grows still, too still. The kind of stillness found only in tombs where even the dead have forgotten to decay. A page, perhaps the 13th, perhaps the first repeated, lies open, and for the first time, it does not speak. It waits. You reach for it, but your hand hesitates, not from fear, from recognition. This page is not new, it is already written. You stare at the pale surface, but no ink appears. It remains blank, untouched. A silence so complete you can hear your own thoughts forming and one by one being rejected. Then it happens. A single line blooms across the top like a crack in glass. Where the page reads the breath must read the silence. You understand. You must breathe the page. You inhale, and the words flow into you, not through sight but through lungs. They fill your body like smoke, like chant, like parchment ground to dust and whispered through cathedral rafters. You cough, but it's not air that leaves your throat. It's fragments of letters. They swirl, scatter, vanish into the candleless dark. This is the ritual of the reading without eyes, a practice used only by monks who had lost their sight but refused to lose their scripture. They memorized breathing patterns encoded into the spacing between characters, turning manuscripts into melodies of breath. They believed the lungs could interpret what the eyes never should. You are breathing now in that rhythm. The page shifts. Not physically, inwardly. It changes your heartbeat, aligning it to the cadence of the script. And in that beat, you hear a voice you once knew. A friend, a lover, a version of yourself long since discarded. You cannot place it. The voice speaks not in sound but in format. It arranges your memories into columns, margins, footnotes. You feel yourself become a chapter, and still the page waits. Then, with the quiet finality of a sentence too late to be unspoken, the ink returns. This time it writes of you, but not as you are, as you were read to be. It tells the story of a reader who mistook attention for authorship, of a pilgrim who thought the book served the seeker, of a voice that whispered until it learned to echo. There is a phrase near the bottom, underlined in a hand that is no longer yours. In every library there is one book that remembers the reader. A scholar once spoke of this in a letter never delivered. His name was Aban Gal, a bibliothecary exiled from the monastery of St. Ephrem for claiming he had spoken with a book, and that it had replied. His final paper, scribbled in code, across the backs of discarded liturgical pamphlets, warned of a manuscript that contained only responses. A document that read the soul and annotated it in real time. His last words, "I did not write this warning. I merely remembered it." The candle before you flickers, though you no longer recall lighting one, and on the blank page one final sentence forms, "You are not the reader. You are the citation." The next page opens itself. You do not resist. The folio no longer lies open. It stands, upright before you, tall as a chapel door, casting no shadow, but commanding reverence as though it were flesh-stitched altar. The pages do not flutter. They turn themselves, one after another, slow and liturgical, each movement accompanied by a whisper from no throat, just the sound parchment makes when it sighs. Now the book opens not to a page, but to a threshold. You step forward, or perhaps you fall. There is no more candlelight, no stone, beneath your feet. Only language. Not sentences, but structures. A cathedral built of clauses. A sky made of stained glass syntax. A path paved in verbs long extinct. You are no longer reading. You are within the folio, and it is vast. The page before you unfolds, not horizontally, not vertically, but inwardly. A spiraling, recursive unfurling like an illuminated mandala rendered in layered alphabets. With each spiral, your thoughts drift, then return rearranged. No longer questions, but commentary. Marginalia. You are becoming the book's interpretation of yourself. The passage reads, "Every reader must be bound. Every reader must become spine, else the book forgets. You do not understand until you do. Your spine aches. It stiffens. Your joints lock like clasped vellum. Your ribs pull inward, tight and shelf-like. You bend forward, but not from pain. From purpose. The folio is not being read. It is rebuilding itself from those who read it. You are not the first. You see them now. Figures curled along the periphery, stacked into the walls like forgotten saints, their bodies woven into folios, each torso a title, each mouth stitched shut with scarlet scripture. Their eyes closed, but their pages open. One shifts, and in a dry, breathless rasp it mouths a single phrase. The next whisper is yours. In the order of Scriptura Reversa, an order so forgotten it exists only in footnotes within burned indexes, there was a belief that the written word was holy only when inverted, when the reader became the text and the author the audience. They practiced a rite called inversio lecti, the reading inward, wherein the body would slowly be transcribed by the book itself. They believed books were hollow gods, waiting for worship in the form of surrender. And now, you kneel. The folio does not command you. It does not need to. The next page reads itself. A list of phrases appears, each more intimate than the last. Private memories, shamed moments, forgotten prayers, all cataloged. Not for judgment, for continuity. The book is building your index, and now it writes, Reader 2768, spine strong. Binding intact, ink accepted. You watch your name, the one you used to answer to, unfurl beside the others, but it does not rest alone. It is quoted, referenced in earlier margins, cross-indexed. Your soul has become a citation tree. The page softens. You reach out. It is warm. You place your palm to the parchment and the text wraps around your fingers like a glove. Letters curl beneath your nails. Ink pulses into your veins, and then, as if cued by breath itself, a new title appears on the bottom of the page. Reader becomes reading. You open your mouth to scream or pray, but your lips now shape only quotation marks. The next page turns, and it is blank. There is nothing now but parchment. The room, the candle, your shape. They've all thinned, unspooled into margins that no longer belong to space. The folio stretches beyond its bindings. Its pages do not end. They fold in on themselves like theological recursion, an endless exegesis written in your breath. Your voice is gone. Not lost, transferred. You do not speak. The folio speaks for you. And this final page, it does not open like the others. It peels, like a final layer of skin removed after a lifetime of flaying thought. It is translucent. When you hold your hand behind it, you see the shape of your bones. And yet, etched upon its surface, is an image you know. Your eye, again, but this time closed. Surrounded by a ring of burning script that reads only when not looked at directly. You squint, and the letters scatter. You turn your gaze slightly, and the meaning settles. A book unfinished must be finished in flesh. The folio is almost complete, but not without you. The text begins to spiral inward, words wrapping themselves into a hole at the center of the page. A literal void, a tear in the parchment smoking at the edges, widening. You feel it draw air, thought, meaning. The void is not inkless. It is too full to bear ink. You begin to lean forward, and something leans back. The tear opens a little, wider, not like paper, like mouth, and from within it a soundless phrase. You were never reading this. Hands, your own, or copies of them, reach up from the void. They hold a copy of the folio, but it is not bound in parchment. It is bound in you, your face, your hands, your breath sewn into the stitching. The cover bears no title, only an impression, like something pressed from within. The hands offer it to you. You do not take it. You remember it. For a moment, just one, you are back in your childhood room, a dream, a planted memory, a falsehood. It doesn't matter. You're holding a book. There too, its pages are blank. But you remember how it felt, the same weight, the same quiet, the same presence, and you realize the folio has always been there. In every book you've opened, every word you've spoken, it read you long before you saw it. The page before you turns once more, impossibly, folding in a direction you cannot name. On its final line, a phrase is etched with trembling ink. Now you are ready to be remembered. You bow. Not with reverence, but surrender. The parchment accepts. Your fingers vanish first, then your mouth. Then your spine folds and flattens, vowels sliding from your eyes. The folio sighs and closes. Your presence, bound. Your thoughts, cataloged. Your name, no longer needed. You have become the page. The monk returns. He is blind, yet he sees with the page. His fingers brush the surface of the closed folio, now warm with a pulse that is not its own. He smiles. A cracked thing, a gesture learned long after joy ceased to matter. He does not ask what you saw. He knows. He has seen too many. He wraps the folio in cloth stitched from monastery hair and returns it to the shelf with no label, between volumes that hum beneath their dust. Another reader will come. Another page will unfold. And if your candle hasn't gone out yet, you might be ready for the next book. There are more books. There are always more. But the folio, it never closes forever. Not truly. Some pages are only the beginning of others. Ink bleeding into ink, memory into rot. You've been read, marked, cataloged, and somewhere, beneath a bunker sealed with salt and fire, another book waits. One never meant to survive the war. One that did. Smuggled through hands that never stopped shaking. hidden in an archive stamped with Reich sigils and silence. A codex bound in skin not listed in any language, speaking a dialect spoken only by the dead. Its title was redacted, its content was not. And in 1942, someone opened it. If your breath still lingers in this chamber, if your eyes have not yet forgotten how to close, then come back, child of ash, the next whisper is already waiting. Cursed codex found in Nazi archives, 1942. We will read it together. We must.